This webinar looks at concept maps, story maps, and other graphic organizers. It is presented as a dialogue between Emily Kresiak and Amy Howley. Emily and Amy take the roles of two paraprofessionals who are learning about different types of graphic organizers and want to share what they're learning with one another. Hi, Emily. I'm interested in what you've been learning about concept maps. I have a couple of questions. First, what are some uses for concept maps?
Well, you probably know that concept maps are diagrams that help show the meaning of ideas and how ideas are related. They can be used to present new vocabulary or show how one fact or interpretation fits into the larger body of knowledge. Or an educator can use a concept map to help students generate ideas in a brainstorming session. For example, an English teacher might ask something like this: "What can you tell me about poems?" One student might say, "They rhyme." Another might say, "They're shorter than novels." Another might chime in, "They use images." All of the ideas that the students present contribute to an understanding of what a poem is, and the teacher can record their ideas using a concept map.
That's interesting. Can you show me some examples of concept maps?
Sure, here's a very simple concept map that shows the ideas related to the concept agriculture. And here's one that I used with a group of students to brainstorm ways to combine integers to get a sum of 9. And here's a more complicated one that provides different kinds of information about the concept culture.
I appreciate those examples. Now could you tell me how I might use a concept map as part of a lesson?
Sure. I'll give you an example of something I did with a student I was helping to learn about the U.S. government. I developed a partially completed concept map with the U.S. government in the center and the 3 branches of government and the rectangles surrounding it. Then I left spaces for the student to fill in additional information about each branch of government. Even though I've used concept maps, I've never actually used a story map. They're similar, right?
Yes, I think so. I've been learning to use them with middle school students. They're a little different than concept maps because they present information about the various features of a story, the features relating to how the story is put together. Story maps are usually trying to show what these features are, not necessarily how they connect. So a story map might have one section that presents information about the characters in the story, and another section that presents information about the events in the story, and a third section that presents information about the main ideas or themes of the story. Here's an illustration using color coding to show the different parts of a story map.
It's exciting to see how different types of graphic organizers accomplish different purposes. One type I especially like is the flowchart, but some of those can get very complicated.
Well, what do flowcharts show?
Flowcharts typically show the steps in a process. Sometimes they can show what happens if someone takes a particular action in a process rather than another action. But mostly the students I work with prefer the simpler ones. Just to show you how complicated they can get, here's one that seems really hard to follow. Here's a simpler one that shows the steps in writing a short essay. Notice how one part of the process can be repeated several times.
Interesting. The science textbook I'm using to help one of my students has a lot of simple flowcharts. I've never asked the student to talk with me about what the flowchart is showing, but I'll try doing that next time I work with him. One of the types of graphic organizers I especially like is the Fishbone Chart. It's used to show the different causes of an event. Here's one I developed to use with some students to help them think about the different causes of the Revolutionary War.
With younger students, I've used T-charts to show causes and effects. I've also used them to organize the pro and con sides of an issue. This one focuses on the pros and cons of using a calculator. When I help students review their math lessons, this is something we talk about.
That reminds me, I also use Venn diagrams. I know they come from math, but they're great for showing how ideas overlap or don't overlap. Here's one that shows the properties of plants and animals. Notice that grow and reproduce are shared by both categories of living things.
Speaking of overlapping, have you heard of crosswalks? I've heard them called matrices, grids, and semantic feature analyses as well.
Let's just call them crosswalks, if you're okay with that.
Sure, that's fine. What a crosswalk shows is how one set of things intersects with another set of things. For example, here's one that shows the characteristics of different insects. You can see that all of the insects have 6 legs, have 3 body parts, and lay eggs, but only some of them sting and only some of them have wings. I bet we could also use a crosswalk to show the same things about plants and animals we could see on the Venn diagram.
Our conversation has convinced me that graphic organizers can be used in a lot of different ways, and they don't always need to be created to look as polished as the ones we've been showing one another. Sometimes we could draw them with students using the chalkboard or a poster board, or we could ask students to draw them on their own.
That's true. I've also found bunches of templates for graphic organizers by searching the internet.
Thanks for talking with me about graphic organizers, Emily.
Goodbye. I'll catch you later.